Recently I've heard of the Get Barbaric challenge, which challenges the game designers to make a Barbarian type character in their own systems. And there's a small problem. My systems don't tend to have Barbarian in them. But I challenged myself, asking myself, what if I made one in Runehack? Well, there are two tiny problems with that. First of all, Runehack is cyberpunk, which no problem, you can just reflavor it, and the important part is the nature of a barbarian, someone who throws away the caution and throws himself into the action. The other problem though is Runehack has no combat. Before we continue, let's talk about the basics of Runehack. First of all, it has 5 attributes: muscle, agility, training, cognition and hunch. Muscle and agility are self-explanatory. Training is about knowledge that relates to tool sets and materials and working with materials, including stuff like art and crafts, while cognition is about knowledge that is related to things that are non-physical, such as psychology, history, anthropology, and so on. Hunch, finally, is a sort of intuition, your ability to guess things that you do not know or have no chance of knowing. The attributes range from 0 to 4, with an average attribute having a value of 1. When you take an action, you roll 2d6 or 1d12 depending on your choice every single time. You add your attribute to the roll, and you try to roll more than 8, 12 or 16 depending on whatever your GM chooses is appropriate for your action. On each turn you can take 3 actions, and the number of actions you can take is reduced by the number of wounds you have. With that out of the way, let's talk about Alton. Alton Northwill is a pale orc from Moorwell. He lost his parents at a young age, which is why he grew up with his uncle Campman Northwill, and he spent his youth working in a bike shop. He didn't learn much from the school, instead he would learn much more about bikes and the culture that relates to them and history from his uncle. His attributes are muscle 3, training 2, hunch 1, and the agility and cognition are both at a 0. As for his secondary traits, his burden, which defines how many items he can carry, is equal to muscle plus 1, in his case it's 4. Concealed items 0, because that is equal to agility. He cannot really hide too many things on his person in a way that others cannot find them. His masteries that are offered from the training are things, areas of knowledge that he would have a great chance of succeeding at. In his case it would be drums and bikes. He doesn't have any masteries offered by the cognition attribute, and finally he can have 1 guess. Guess allows you to, out of character, and make a statement. The GM has to say whether this statement is true or not, and your character kind of has this knowledge but doesn't have any evidence of it. When it comes to Alton's resources, he has 10 energy and 300 credits. Credits are the currency, of course, because it's cyberpunk. As for the energy is a resource that that characters in Runehack can spend to avoid gaining a wound, which, as I mentioned previously, reduces the amount of actions you can take. So let's talk about the traits of an orc. Orcs, first and foremost, all share perseverance, which allows them to repeat 1 action once per turn. It doesn't have to be done the same way. For example, if you try to grab 1 person in a turn, you can try to repeat the same action and grab a different person, or you can move straight and then move and turn left or something. The other 3 traits I chose for him from the social pillar are all unique to the orcs. First of all, there's Beyond the Limit, which allows you to increase your highest attribute by 1. In his case it would be the muscle, which makes his muscle 4. The attributes cannot usually start at a value higher than 3. This is something unique for the orcs. Second trait that I chose for him is Thick Skin, which allows him to shrug off 1 wound once per day. Finally, there's true words. This trait allows Alton to talk in a way that cannot be misinterpreted. Others who would try to sense whether he is speaking the truth or telling lies. As long as he is telling the truth, he can choose his words to be radiantly clear to everyone, making them certain that what he says is indeed true. Through his job, Alton got to know a dwarf named Jarla's Runesong. They became friends, and Jarlas eventually told him that he's a member of a music band called Barbarian. Alton wanted to join in, so he bought a drum kit with his savings and trained until Jarlas was impressed enough to invite him into the band. And the band got successful to a small extent, even to the point where they got themselves a human manager called Reginald's Goldenstone for quite a cheap price. You start with up to 3 contacts, which you have relationships with that range from -3 to +3. Higher number means better relationship. In Alton's case, the relationships are +2 for Campman, Northwill, his uncle, +3 for a bass guitarist from the band, the Jarla's Runesong, and -2 for Reginald's Goldenstone, the manager of his band. They should add up to 3, so in this case it's perfectly fine. Let's move on to the job pillar. His job is that of a seeker, which is a label for all the jobs in which you try to satisfy your customers' ever-changing desires through your performance. In this case, he's a musician, he's a drummer. Music can have 4 qualities. These qualities are different for different types of seekers. In this case, the 4 qualities are intensity, tempo, authenticity, and creativity. Intensity is reliant on muscle, and it speaks of how loudly the music can be played. In Alton's case, really loudly. Tempo speaks of how fast you can play it, and it relies on your agility, while authenticity relies on your cognition, because it's about how emotionally moving your music can be. Finally, there's creativity, which relies on hunch, and it's sort of how well you can make your music sound good, despite it violating the music theory. As for the training, it can be used for one quality of your choice, replacing it. In Alton's case, that would probably be tempo. You would like to play fast. So, I picked 2 features for him. Alternative approach, which allows him to use training for 2 of his qualities instead of 1. In his case, let's make it tempo and authenticity. And destructive dedication, which allows Alton to destroy his musical instrument and multiply the total earnings for the current phase of the performance by 10. Reginald eventually reveals that he's actually a member of a secretive organization called Acumen. They seek to reveal the secret plans of megacorporations that rule the world to the public, so they can resist their influence together. They admire the talent of Barclarians and offer them an exchange. Make music that speaks of these corporate plans, and the members of Acumen will spread the music in return. Barclarians couldn't help but take this offer. When it comes to the spy pillar, Alton's role is that of a mover. In spy pillar, your task is to navigate a map in order to achieve some kind of objective, whether it's retrieving or delivering information or items or even people sometimes. The maps are made up of areas that are connected by passages, and passages can have obstacles that slow people down. In order to pass them without being slowed down, you can have masteries, which you gain from the spy pillar. You start with 2 of them, and for Alton, those masteries would be over and slope. He's really good at jumping over stuff like fences or tables or bikes, and he can run up and down the slopes quite well, so things like stairs or slanted rooftops. When it comes to his apps, I chose Push and Stallfall. Now, apps are the closest thing that this system has to spells, and they allow you to do a little something with the runes in order to assist yourself or your allies. Using Push, he can push someone to an adjacent area using his telekinesis, and with Stallfall, He can take no wounds when falling from a great height, assuming he uses this app before he falls. That's about it for the Get Barbaric challenge. That's Alton Northville. Thank you for your time, and have a great century.